Hello and welcome to this very special sleep webinar with Baboo in collaboration with Emily from Fox and the Moon. So this chat is tailored to support parents and caregivers of little ones, especially those in the 6 to 12 month age range. However, everyone is welcome as we know that each child is unique and every baby progresses differently in their development, including their sleep development. So I'm Sophie, I'm the Head of Partnerships and Montessori Lead at Baboo. I was a Montessori teacher for 7 years and have worked with children 2 to 5 and all their families. And then I joined Baboo just over a year ago. So quickly to tell you a little bit more about Baboo. Baboo is a game-changing online platform for parents and kids under 5 and is powered by early years educators and parents to deliver a truly personalised learning journey. So we're all about promoting healthy development in little ones while also supporting parents' emotional and physical well-being. So now I'm going to pass you over to Emily. Thanks so much for joining me again. I'll let you introduce yourself and a little bit about what you do.
Hi, so I'm Emily and I'm the owner and founder of Fox and the Moon. We are holistic and responsive sleep coaches. So we are trying to kind of flatten the narrative that is kind of sleep training and all of the noise that we hear about infant sleep and what actually matters, and back that up with evidence and science. I'm a mum of 2 children, both of which struggled with reflux and allergies and tongue tie. So a lot of the work that I personally do is to help parents with very frequent wakers and identify the cause of that. We offer one-to-one support. We have webinars and courses that parents can do, and we're about to launch our new ebooks too, that you'll be able to buy as a download or as a physical copy as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Baboo has a virtual village, and we've got lots of questions for you, Emily, surrounding just what you talked about then. So I will kick off with our first one. This is from one of our villagers, and they say, we have an almost 6-month-old and we have terrible time napping and sleeping all of a sudden. It turned out to be teeth coming through, which finally made an appearance yesterday. But what can I do to soothe their discomfort and ensure that they still get enough rest?
So I think that if your gut feeling was that the difficulties you were facing was down to teething, then that's very normal. Babies can experience teething in just like adults, can experience pain in a lot of different ways. And we all have our own kind of pain threshold. So teething will impact some babies more than others. And I think my first point is to say that if you're really confident that the disruption to sleep was down to teething, then obviously that should pass. It's very hard and you will overthink how to get them the most rest when they're in discomfort, but all you can do is follow their lead with it. Things like freezing orange segments, putting them in the freezer, obviously, and if they're kind of starting to wean, letting them chew on things like that. Also freezing or putting watermelon slices in the fridge is really good for teething. And just following their lead. They may need more contact, more support to fall asleep. So popping them in a carrier, putting them in a pram, going out for walks and things like that would always be beneficial, but always trust your instinct with it. If it feels like it's gone on for too long for it to be teething, then obviously reach out. And if the frequent kind of wake ups are hourly, then have a look at what might be the root cause of that. So something that's bothering their tummy, oral dysfunction and air swallowing when they're feeding and things like that. But like I said at the start, if you're confident it was the teething, then it will pass.
Fantastic. Thank you. The next question, I have a 4-month-old and wanted some advice on getting him to sleep better at night time. He's currently waking every 2 to 3 hours and it's been like this for months. He seems to want to cuddle, to feed, and he sleeps as soon as he's breastfeeding. We've been trying to make sure we spread out his feeds with gaps in the day, aiming for about 4 hours, but often giving it 3 in the hope that he takes bigger feeds. Is the answer sleep training?
So I would say that the answer isn't sleep training. We hear a lot that if we don't sleep train at 4 months, then our children will never sleep, and that's simply not true. There's quite a few layers to this question. The first thing I'd like to say is that at 4 months, our babies go through such massive cognitive changes, but also changes to their sleep architecture and sleep cycles. So they go from having newborn sleep cycles to more adult-like sleep cycles, which can mean that they are waking more frequently. It can make them feel very a bit confused, a bit disorientated as their bodies are cycling through this change of sleep. I hear a lot though, my child went through the 4-month sleep regression and they never recovered from it. And if these kind of very frequent wakes are continuing and continuing, please don't just put it down to a regression in sleep. It's actually a progression because they are, growing and developing as they should. If your child's waking every 2 to 3 hours at 4 months old, that's actually quite normal. And yes, it's very tiring and it won't always last. I would say that if you're in any doubt during the day, offer the breast, because trying to stretch those feeds to 4 hours could actually be impacting on the nighttime. Mm-hmm. Don't forget that breastfed babies will feed often and on demand. So it's not like a formula feeding schedule, although I don't really agree with those either. I think that if your baby's giving cues that they want to feed them, even if they're feeding little and often, that will change because they are putting that order in for that breast milk, and by kind of feeding more throughout the day might actually make things a lot better overnight.
Fantastic, thank you. That's really reassuring. I'm sure. The next question is that my little one was practically sleeping through up until 12 weeks, and since then she's been up every couple of hours. I'm feeding every time she stirs, but I've heard potentially they are just trying to self-settle and you should just let them be, as they have the ability to sleep through by this age. Just trying to figure out what will help us to get back to better sleep.
Okay, so this is the kind of thing that Fox and the Moon speak about a lot, is that we are told that by a certain age, by a certain weight, our children should and can sleep through the night. At 3 months old, that is not true. 3-month-olds should be waking to feed. I would say up to 12-month-olds, it's fine to be waking to feed, and even thereafter if they're breastfeeding. 80% of breastfed babies will still wake overnight for a feed until they're about 18 months old. And that doesn't mean that it will stop at that point, but that's just to give you a bit of an idea. If your baby is stirring and you're feeding them, that to me tells me that you're responding to a cue that your child's giving you. And I would tune into that instinct. If it feels like they're waking and stirring because they need to feed, then continue to do so. If there's absolutely no harm in leaving it for a minute and seeing if they do go back to sleep, they will cry if they're not going to be able to do that. And you don't have to leave them to cry to achieve that better sleep. I'd also like to say, and it's quite hard because if you don't know me and what we're about, then potentially what I'm saying is quite confusing and a lot of information. But if a baby has slept brilliantly until 12 weeks and then has started to wake quite frequently, that could be for numerous different reasons. There's a big growth spurt at this age. They'll want to feed more. These changes that are happening around 3 to 6 months with the sleep cycle that generally happens at 4 months could be coming into play. They're also trying to learn to roll over at this age, although they might not be there yet. They'll be trying to practice that when they're asleep. But if you've always had a good sleeper and now you've not, consider those things that I've just noted, but also consider the way they were born, whether they're refluxy or colicky. So if your baby was born by a forceps, it was quite a difficult labour, they were a C-section, potentially they're compensating for some muscular tension. So seeing an osteopath is a really good idea if you've got a baby that's refluxy and has been born in those circumstances. But if the waking feels unsustainable, we have to think about why that might be, and just checking that there is nothing that's physically waking that baby up. So tension, air swallowing, if they've got a shallow latch, they're dribbling milk, they're clicking, all of those things. And if any of that rings true, we have a course called the Ultimate Settled Baby Solution that talks you through everything that you can optimize in terms of those things. So that might help.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Is it still good to do dream feeding after 6 months?
So dream feeding is a lot. Different people have a lot of different opinions on dream feeding. I think that if dream feeding works And when I say works, it means that you are both getting a longer stretch of sleep after that dream feed. And then I would continue to do so. We have to be aware, though, that the baby needs to be conscious when they're feeding to reduce choking. If they have reflux, then I wouldn't be offering a dream feed, just because they're half asleep and they need to be fully aware of that feed happening. If you're in doubt about whether you should do it, don't offer it one night and see what happens. I think that we have to then tune back into our instincts. Does this feel like the right thing to do? Are they more settled after it? The answer is yes, then go for it.
Fantastic. And then the next question, she said, one of our villagers says, I'm putting my girl, who's 7 months old, to sleep every night as she cannot sleep by herself. She'll be rolling over all the time if I just leave her in bed. Will it be a problem?
No. A 7-month-old, or any child for that matter, is going to need some parental intervention to help them calm down and go to sleep. If you're leaving her on the bed and she's rolling around and she's happy, she might not be tired enough. So just push her last wake window a little bit. But please just support your child to sleep. You're not creating a rod for your own back. You're not creating any bad habits. If it's easy and it feels right, continue to do it.
Brilliant. The next question I have for you is my girl will be up in the night and sometimes cry out for comfort, and I feel like she's not sleeping tight. Can you tell me how I can help her?
So if she's waking and crying out for comfort, I would respond to that. I know that's really annoying for a sleep coach to say, because all we want is sleep. And if if I was talking to you live, I'd be asking you how many times, how old your child was, and it really depends on that as to the answer that I give. I would say that if they're waking up every hour crying out for you for comfort, there is a reason for that, and finding out that reason will improve the sleep. If they're kind of waking 2 or 3 times a night to cry out for comfort, I would say that's very normal, and I would just respond as normal. We think that the more we respond, the more children will do it, but it's the opposite. Yeah. The more we respond, the more safe and secure they feel within that attachment, and they know that you're always going to come if they do need you. So sometimes leaning into it, offering that support and reassurance can actually make that transition and that period pass sooner. But yeah, that's kind of my general advice. It would be good to know a little bit more about how many times and how old and things. But if you need any advice, then just give me a shout.
Thank you. And moving on to our last question. My son is 22 months old and is waking up any time between 4:45 and 5:15 each morning. He tends to ask for milk or his dummy, so we phased that out about 6 months ago. With the milk, we try to hold off until it's closer to 7 p.m. We haven't done any sleep training of any kind. We put him down with his sister in his cot bed, and after school pickup, the TV does not go on, and they have dinner around 5:30, and bedtime routine starts around 6:15 with bed at 7. It takes nearly up to 8 p.m. to go to sleep most nights, and naps we try to do it at 12 noon, but he's only down for an hour to an hour 30 max. We worry that he's not getting enough sleep.
Okay, so firstly, this sounds very normal for a child that's dropped to one nap. It sounds like there's been a big shift in his need for sleep. So the answer to this problem is in your question. If he's not going to bed to sleep until 8 p.m., you're potentially starting bedtime way too soon. And although you have 2 children and it's hard to time those bedtimes, the best thing to do in this situation is to keep a note, like a diary of sleep, for about a week. Note down the time he wakes from his nap and the time that he eventually falls asleep for every day for that week. Then work out the average wake window from when nap ends to when he falls asleep, and use that to time bedtime. So if he's not falling asleep till 8 p.m., start bedtime at 7:30 so that he falls asleep nice and quickly and that it's less stressful. If you are finding that you start bedtime at 7:30 and he's not falling asleep till 8:30, keep going with that diary, because potentially he's waking up quite early in the morning because he's had enough sleep, not that he's not had enough. And if he's waking and asking for milk, I would give him the milk, because if it means that he has a full tummy and goes back to sleep, brilliant, problem solved. if giving him the milk doesn't help him go back to sleep, then really do think about whether you're actually starting bedtime too early. And then at the end of each day of the diary, you can just write down in it, at the end, total amount of sleep in a 24-hour period. And if that's consistent, he's happy and he's growing fine, then that will be his need for sleep. So don't worry about achieving this magical kind of 13, 14 hours of sleep. Could be that he is a low sleep need child. So that would be my advice to that situation.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much. I really like that idea of something really practical and a good way to track the sleep that your little one is having.
Definitely. And we do, if you kind of don't really know what to log in a sleep diary, we have a free sleep diary template on our website that you can download and fill in and keep track of.
Brilliant. I will put those links when we post this out for all of our villagers to access should they need it. Thank you so much. We've reached the end of our questions from the virtual village. In our previous webinar on the sleep that we did for 0 to 6 months, we were joined by Matt from Rocket. And Rocket is a portable sleep aid to provide a soothing experience for babies. What are the advantages of these sleep aids for babies and young children when it comes to sleep?
I think especially the Rocket Rocker, the original product that Matt brought out, I think all of his products are really useful, and it is an aid. It's, it can help those kind of situations where you're in a cafe and your baby's asleep in the pram and you don't want them to kind of be disturbed by being still or by loud noises. Then playing some white noise into their pram and using the rocker gently rocks their pram and keeps them asleep. It's all about, it's not, Matt's products are all about helping parents instead of replacing parents, and I think that's what I like about them so much. So anything like that, if they work, like use them to your advantage. I wouldn't say they're a hindrance. I wouldn't say, don't use them. You're not they're not products, like I've said, that are interfering with that kind of responsiveness from the parent. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the rocker, especially.
Yeah, us too. It's been great to learn some tips and tricks from you, and so hopefully we've answered some questions for the villagers and for other parents as well who want to get that extra little bit of sleep. But thank you so much, and look forward to the next one.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you.